Where has all the play gone? Why is it that as adults, we don't prioritize play more? In our society, we have been taught not to play, not to mess around. We've been taught from a young age that an adult's job is to be serious and focused. And I think that's really dangerous. I think it's destroying our ability to grow, to create, and to engage with other people. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about why it is that so many of us have lost the ability to play, why play matters so much, the cultural impacts and assumptions that we make about play compared to productivity, and then some practical tips for how we can reclaim play in order to make our lives richer and fuller and a lot more fun. So if you feel like you've been stuck in serious mode for too long and you just want to piss about a bit more, then maybe this is the episode for you. And with all that being said, let's get into it. So let's first talk about the seriousness trap. This is a really typical thing for adults to fall into. And I think it's society driven. I think we're told that as soon as we start adulting, that means that we have to let go of messing around and playing, and we need to be a lot more serious. We need to be a lot more driven and a lot more focused. We're aware that there are more things in the world that we need to pay attention to. There's all the serious stuff like finances and what kind of job you do and whether or not you have a pension and you're saving for the future. And all of those things are really important. But by focusing so much on that, we lose all of the fun and the enjoyment that we could be having in life at the same time. Everything becomes about outcomes. It becomes about productivity. And our lives turn into this corporate mentality of, you've got to do all of the things on this list. And yes, maybe we do have to do all of the things on the list, but we can have fun while we're doing them. And I also think that because society has driven this narrative of adults are the serious ones and kids are the playful ones, that any opportunity that we do get as adults to mess around a bit and play feels like it's frowned upon. Feels like we should be being more serious. There's lots of phrases that are bandied about like, oh, stop being a kid. Stop being so childish. And I think that can really damage and inhibit us. It can really challenge our ego and our sense of self if we feel like people are looking down on us because we're being playful. So why does play matter? I think play matters because it's the best way as adults we have of experimentation. It's the best way that we have of not taking the things that we're doing in life too seriously. And in some of my other episodes, I've talked about getting better at failure. And I think play is one way that we can get better at failure. If we don't see failure as this direct hit on our ego and our sense of self, but instead we just see it as, I was just messing around with a thing. I was just playing with it and I was trying to see what would work best. Then for me, at least, it's a lot freer, it's a lot lighter, and I can experiment and I can be more myself in the process. I found this a lot with art. When I'm trying to follow a specific script, when I'm trying to paint in a specific way, it feels really restrictive. It feels heavy and burdensome, and I don't enjoy the process. Whereas when I'm playful, when I'm just experimenting and throwing paint around all over the canvas, that's the part that I enjoy the most. That's when my creativity can really be let loose because I'm not thinking about the outcome. I'm not thinking about what it should or shouldn't look like. And I would also argue that some of my best paintings have been created in that way because of that freedom and that energy that I can get through that mark making because I'm not taking it too seriously. I don't care about the outcome in that moment. I am just playing with colors and brush strokes and being completely free. I think play also helps to get you into a flow state. Anytime you feel like you've got a sense of play, you can't really think about anything else. Now, I've heard flow state also described as a single-minded focus, as in there is only one thing that you're thinking about. You're not thinking about what you're having for dinner later. You're not thinking about that conversation that you had with a work colleague 2 days ago. So flow state is the natural antidote to anxiety. Because if you can get yourself into a state where you are only paying attention to the thing that you are doing in that moment, Anxiety goes away. Anxiety in itself is future predictions. It's not real. It's a made-up story that you're creating in your mind. And so flow state is an antidote to that. And by extension, if you can get into flow state by playing, then it's a really good way in. And play takes lots of forms for lots of different people. I'm not saying that we all have to go out there and be clowns. Play for you might be experimenting with different colours on an exciting knitting pattern. It might be jumping off a cliff into the sea. Or it might just be kicking a ball around in the park with some friends. The key is that there is no pressure, there is no objective, it is just for the sake of having fun. There's no right, wrong, there's no challenge to your ego, you don't have to be better at the thing. It is solely for the purpose of just doing the thing, becoming totally engrossed in it and enjoying the process. And I think the most obvious example of this is kids. I'm aware that when I'm playing with my kids, I cannot focus on anything else. And also they're not focusing on anything else either. We are all completely in the moment together. And that's where the most joy and the most contentment of just being comes from. And I also notice that as soon as I detach from that now mindset, from that completely focused on the thing that we're doing, maybe I get a text message and I glance at my phone. Maybe I look at the time to see if I need to start making dinner or not. As soon as I break that connection, the child feels it. They are aware that I am no longer in that state with them. And so they also detach. And with kids especially, as soon as you break that flow state, it's really difficult to get back. They're gone, they're distracted. That's the point that both of my boys will say, oh, I'm really bored. Oh, can we do something else? It's not because they're bored. It's because I've detached. I've broken that flow state that we were all in, where time didn't matter and we were just enjoying the moment and playing together. I think when I look around at society, adults have very few socially acceptable outlets for play. The first one is obviously sports. You can get a sense of community and you can get a sense of play through engaging in sport. But even then, there's a social expectation that everybody has to be better. The amount of times that I've walked around the local playing field when there's been a group of guys playing football, and the language coming from that playing field is so toxic. Because instead of having an enjoyable experience where everybody is just messing around and doing their best, everything is really serious. Everybody is taking it as if they need to be professional footballers. And I think that's where a lot of the toxic culture comes in with those kind of groups. For me personally, when I went and did some training for a rugby union club near me, my favourite part was the touch rugby at the beginning to warm up. That's when everybody is just messing around, they're having a lovely time, nothing's taken too seriously, nobody really minds if you drop the ball. And yet as soon as the proper practice started, then you would get people shouting abuse at other people. You would get people actively and negatively criticising people, even though they are all doing their best. Nobody goes to play rugby and thinks, you know what, I'm probably just going to play really badly today. That's my intention. And yet the language coming out of some of those people was the reason that I didn't want to participate, was the reason that I stepped away from it. Because they were taking it so seriously, it took the fun out of it for me. I'm over 40. I don't want to be a professional rugby player. But I think that behaviour of taking everything so seriously creates such a high barrier for entry that people lose the ability to play through those avenues. And the other way that I think adults engage in play is by getting drunk first. Now, I don't drink and I haven't drunk for over 20 years now. But what I see in other people is getting drunk allows them to mess around more. It lowers their inhibitions and it lets their inner child out. Now, I don't really understand why you would need alcohol in order to do that. But I think it does suggest that our ability to play is not that we don't know how, it's that our inhibitions are so high that it restricts us. We as a society have created an environment where the only way you're allowed to mess around is if you have an artificial way of lowering your inhibitions. And that's not reinforcing the habits of play in your day-to-day life. Because even if you do like a drink, you can't be drunk all of the time just to enjoy life more. So, how do we as adults reclaim a bit of play in our lives? How do we take everything a little bit less seriously and find a way of being less inhibited and an ability to mess around a bit more? I think there's loads of ways of doing this. I'm just going to suggest a few that come to mind for me. So the first one is taking a class of some kind which will force you into that playful environment. I'm thinking improv classes or stand-up comedy or a singing class. The key here is not to take it too seriously. To acknowledge that the point of this is not to go on to be a professional in these areas, but instead to find an outlet for creativity where we're always aiming at a playful environment. There's this idea in improv of yes and I think that's a really good approach to play in general. Anything you're doing, anything where you start that kind of playful mentality, just keep saying yes and. This works with the kids as well. I love making up stories with my boys. But the key to making up stories and the key to them being involved in those made up stories and being part of the process is whatever they suggest, we go yes and. We build it into the story. There's no bad ideas because it's all play. It's all just enjoying the process. The other way that you might be able to do it is just think, what's the worst possible way that I could do this thing? That's a way of just taking the seriousness out of the situation. All of a sudden, you're not aiming at perfection. You're not aiming at getting better. You're actually aiming at the opposite. What's the worst possible way that I could dance to this song? What's the worst possible way that I can draw this picture? It takes all of the pressure off because all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore because you're aiming for bad. And if you want to work out where your play really is, look at what you're like on your own. When you're on your own in the house, look at the kind of things you do that give you joy. When there's no one there to watch you, when there's no one there to judge you. Maybe that's singing really badly to your favourite song, or dancing terribly in the kitchen while you're doing the washing up. Whatever those things are, lean into those. Figure out how you can do more of those more of the time and try and let go of the inhibitions that are surrounding them. Do them with people you trust. Or if you don't feel comfortable, just keep doing it on your own. The more you incorporate play into your day-to-day life, even if it's on your own, the more it will seep into your life in general and make you happier and feel more fulfilled. And then the final way is just reframing play, not as an activity, but as a mindset. And what I mean by that is go into any situation you can with a playful and open mindset. Move away from a rigid idea of what the thing should be and see it as an opportunity for creativity. Play doesn't have to be a scheduled thing that you plan on doing. It doesn't have to be an activity that you're taking part in. It can just be an on-the-spot, all day, every day mindset shift that allows you to experience more of life in a more joyful way, to make you happier and less stressed out, and probably a lot more fun to be around. I know for me, I'm a lot more fun when I'm in a creative space, when I'm open to new ideas, when I'm flexing my creative muscles, and I'm not taking anything that I'm doing too seriously. I think it removes the ego and it allows us all to be a little bit more authentic without the fear of judgment. If that's not a good enough selling point for adding a bit more play into your life, then I don't know what is. So why don't you try and find one thing that you can do in a more playful way today? I would love to hear about it in the comments. Let's share as a community all of the many and varied ways that we can play. Give other people suggestions for how they can also let down their barriers. And anytime we see any other adult playing, we should approach them with no judgment. We should try and embrace it rather than feeling uncomfortable and therefore passing on that uncomfortableness to them in order to make ourselves feel better. Let's all lean in and mess around a bit more and overall have a more fun and happy and enjoyable life. And with that, I'll leave you for today. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Take care and I'll see you on the next one.